everybody. Welcome to episode 22 of McFarland Minutes, your soft launch to Monday. This week, we have Ryan, part of our team. He was an intern in 2022?
I think 2020. Honestly, I don't know.
I think it was 23.
I think 2022.
Okay, whatever.
The last couple years of my life have just blended all together.
Right? So Ryan was an Oregon State University communications.
Digital communication arts.
Thank you.
Is the major in the Department of New Media Communications.
That's right. I forget how complex
It's okay.
this was.
It's complex.
So Ryan was our intern for summer of 1 year. He did a really great series of Dear McFarland Intern, which I love that there was a lost episode in that from an audio perspective. But now Ryan's back. So you've come back, you've been, tell us what you've been doing, and then we'll kind of go into some video stuff.
Yeah. So while I was obviously interning for you guys, I learned a ton about how your company works and what you guys do and stuff like that. And unfortunately, after that, I had to go back to school because I was only in my junior year at the time. So I did
we were sad to see you go back, to be honest.
Yeah. I did one more year at Oregon State working with their athletic department in the video production realm. After that, what happened was Oregon State, while I was there, unfortunately had a falling out with their conference, as you know, which just...
Yeah, poor old Pac-10 turned into Pac-2,
It was a difficult time. Yeah. So there were a lot of questions up in the air about, just what was going on with Oregon State and stuff like that. And while that was happening, I ended up getting a job at the University of Tennessee with the SEC, which is a conference that was a little more stable, not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So then I moved to Knoxville, and that was after I graduated. I think I moved in...
You still worked Oregon Jamboree with us that summer.
Yes, and I moved right after that. So
yeah.
when is Oregon Jamboree?
First weekend in August.
First week, so I must have moved the second weekend in August. And drove to Knoxville and lived and worked there with the athletic department and their video department, VFL Films. Shout out VFL Films. So I worked with them for...
What was your title?
9 months. I think it was just production.
Production head or something.
Yeah, we'd had... it's a big department. Our VFL Films had 14 or 15 employees that are just all in charge of different sports, taking videos, but then we collaborate with the marketing department and the strategic communications department and the photography department and the graphic design department because, a school like that with a larger budget, they have many departments with individuals.
A nice set of employees and creative.
Oregon State obviously is well off as well, but that people wear many different hats at a job like that.
Sure. Like we do at McFarland Productions.
Exactly, same sort of thing. So it just wasn't quite as isolated. So I worked football, cross country, and softball, and was lucky enough for softball to go to the Women's College World Series in Oklahoma City. So that was awesome.
It was really fun to watch, what VFL Films was doing while you were there.
Right.
I obviously wasn't following it before you went out there because they're way too far away for me to be a sport, one of their fan. But Oregon State grad myself. Kevin's an Oregon State grad, so obviously we've always watched what Oregon State's doing. They do a great job in the video department, but the Vols have something kind of special. You guys did some really extra creative work there, and after watching you guys for the year that you were there, some of the cool ones are the blackout game that you guys
dark
did.
Mode.
The dark mode, that's right. The dark mode reel is just epic. I swear I saw that on every marketing channel and every videographer's channel ever that talks about the how-to or the why or why was it effective sort of thing. Can you, speaking to video, obviously you've worked here at McFarland Productions, OSU, and at the Vols. What impact does video have, and how do you generate a storyboard or an idea that is going to be impactful and really hit somebody right where it hurts, if you will?
Yeah, definitely. So first off, shout out to Noah, who kind of spearheaded that whole Venom idea video, and then obviously everybody else like Forrest at VFL Films. We all collaborated on it as a joint unit. But I think let's use that as an example with what you're talking about. That's something that we know is going to hit, but the goal is not to just have that one reel kind of take off. When we do dark mode, we have that reel that kind of starts it, and it really hits, and a lot of our fan base resonates with it. But then like you said, it resonates in the creative world. People that are making videos also recognize it. And so that resonates with everybody else that's not maybe directly interested in just college athletics or college football. This is something that's cool enough that it gets out to everybody. And then from there, the next step is, we had a merch line for Dark Mode. So say you like the video so much, you're like, I'm going to get a shirt for it. That's awesome. Maybe you already had tickets to the game, or maybe now you want to go to the Dark Mode game. That got you so hyped up you want to go to the Dark Mode game. Well, guess what? Once we're at the Dark Mode game, we had another Dark Mode video on the Jumbotron. So I think that, when you know something's going to hit like that, or when you feel very confident, you want to get everything out that you can. Just like
capitalize on the campaign.
You want to capitalize on what you're doing, and especially when you have a specific fan base that you're really in touch with, you get feedback from, and kind of what's going to resonate with them. It's easier to plan. So especially like here, when exactly who's going to be watching your video, when you're editing something, you can be like, this is it. This is going to hit. Everybody's going to like this, and you know how to capitalize on it. And I think what's really fun for me is when you're kind of in the early stages of that and you're getting excited. You're like, oh, I know this is going to be good.
It's all on the prep.
Exactly. And I think when you can really prep, and even early stages as a storyboard, like you said, when you're just putting a storyboard together and you're getting excited, that's just anticipation until the final release date. I'm always getting excited.
I think that applies to across the different types of video that somebody might utilize in their marketing, right? Everything from kind of the low-hanging fruit, even UGC style created videos, right? And hopefully you're working with your UGC people to both utilize their style but also make it work for the campaign. So all the way from UGC all the way up to a full-fledged film, released on Prime or a movie theater or anything like that, the theory is the same, right?
Right.
So we're still talking about, okay, who is this for, and how do we hook them, right?
Right.
There's always a how do we hook them, and then how do we keep them watching to the end, right? And I think that applies really across all of them, from a storyboards perspective. Can you talk about kind of the different levels of film that you've done here at McFarland Productions, or either at other colleges or your own freelance work?
Yeah.
Can we talk some about how are we working on that?
Definitely. So I've made videos anywhere from 7 seconds to 30 minutes. And I've worked on projects that have gone significantly past 30 minutes, but I wouldn't call them my own,
Well, yeah. But when you get into those...
when you get into those, it'd be pretty bold to anybody call them their own.
Yeah, wow. There are people.
There are some that might...
Not us.
Yeah.
We do that as a team.
I think, okay, so let's just work our way up. So the 7-second stuff, anywhere from 7 to 10 seconds. Obviously, you're not too concerned with people watching that whole video, because I think that they're
probably going to do it by accident.
They're probably
anyway.
going to, it's not too difficult to get them to watch that whole video. So for me, I want them to watch it again. I want them to watch it once and be like, wow, I missed that, or I didn't fully get that. Let's watch that again, or let's restart, bring it back. And I think those are moments where it's not any crazy effects or anything that's too wild. It's just maybe something a little more subtle but powerful. So maybe it's a singular quote from somebody that people will recognize, or it's a beautiful shot of nature that it just stops you and it's captivating the moment it hits. And I think you'll know when you have something that'll succeed in 7 seconds. And then you move it up to a standard 30-second reel. And I think that's when you get a little more of that creative expression and freedom. Because when you have 30 seconds, you have to get that hook like you were talking about. So whether that's through effects or a quote or a recognizable face or a song, whatever it happens to be, you've got to get the hook and then keep them entertained with your editing style or the shots or whatever it happens to be. And I think that's where a lot of video marketing is at right now, is the 30-second reel. And that's funny for me because a 30-second reel, I feel didn't fully exist as I was growing up, even though I grew up in kind of the social media era. Like we've talked about,
Yeah.
I was born, I have the same birthday as Facebook.
Yeah, your first birthday was Facebook's
exactly.
birth year.
But the idea of the scrolling through reels, it used to just be videos, but now it's reels, or you have TikTok, or you have YouTube Shorts. And the 30-second idea was, I remember, do you remember Vine by chance? So Vine was 6 seconds.
Vine was my generation.
Right, okay,
stuff,
so, yeah.
like that was our Instagram Reels or
Right.
TikTok, right? So
and
most of them were dumb and
most
funny,
of them were probably dumb and funny.
a lot of them were painful.
This is this is a little before my time, but so did companies have Vines? Like, did Nike have a Vine?
I mean, maybe, but like it was never a focus. Really, like all of the short form video editing stuff really came when Instagram, well, I'd say TikTok really kind of blew up, which like in turn turned Instagram bigger. Right. Instagram's, even prior to Reels or TikTok, video was still huge in marketing anyway. It just took it and like skyrocketed it, right, when we went into the TikTok method.
Right. Well, that, I guess that leads us into like the 3 to 5 minute like brand videos. Those aren't necessarily always for TikTok and Instagram. Those probably aren't going to perform quite as well. But those are the things that,
But you might have a 30-second reel that leads you there.
Exactly.
So
rather than those things, performing well and getting like a lot of views, those are the things where if somebody watches that, they know you at this point.
They're getting to know you. Yeah.
They
want to understand you beyond a level of brand recognition.
And a good brand video like that, the client or the viewer, whoever it is going to be, they feel like they just had a conversation with you. They just learned who you are through that video.
They should be after a brand video, like if we're talking about video marketing strictly, right? It's like the 7-second is like the handshake, right? Like maybe you hit follow, maybe you didn't hit follow if you had enough copy probably on there, right? The 30-second is like, okay, maybe I'm gonna follow these guys because their content's good. That's like brand recognition. And then if you go from there to the 3 to 5 minute, you're contemplating purchase, right? Because you've now committed, you've probably come off the platform onto a website, YouTube, Vimeo, something else, right? And now you're contemplating a purchase. Right. So very different audience. These are like warm leads now that are looking into your brand video.
Yes. And then I think when you take the step up from brand video to something that I would consider real long format, so we're talking about short films, or we're talking about full length feature films.
Sure.
I think
things like the Benny and Rooster video that we did for University of Montana Western, or like any of Yeti's films, or Resist All does a really great job of this.
Right. That is
the short form videos that are, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes tops. Yeah.
I think to me that is, then we're talking about an experience. You've gone from knowing the company or the brand or the individual, and now you're getting to experience their story or a part of their life or an event that happened through the medium of film.
Or one of their community's stories.
Exactly. Yeah. Not only is it special to be able to watch that and experience it, but to be able to make it and be on the team that took lead on that. I think that's really where you get to love your job.
It's my personal favorite. Yeah, that sort of short film, very community focused. Not like, I'm not really selling you anything, really. Right. Like, what we're really trying to achieve with those is trying to make you feel a part of it, right? That's really what any brand is doing with any marketing, right? Like the cool thing about wearing a t-shirt with a logo on it, or a ball cap or whatever, that where you're literally just wearing the logo, right? The Nike swoosh, the Pendleton Roundup, Buck and Horse, whatever the thing is, right? Is you have identified enough with that brand to feel a part of it, right? Now that logo means something to you, right? Instead of just a swoosh, right? Or whatever the thing is, right? Yeah. You have to make something of yourself. You have to connect with people in order to get there. The one way to do that, right, is through the short form video that is very much, we like to call it the Yeti film method, right? Because I'm obsessed with Yeti films, but we've gotten to do a lot of these too, right? Where you're really bringing in a piece of that community and making them part of that brand story, right? So these are usually like, sticking with the Benny and Rooster video for University of Montana Western Rodeo. Benny and Rooster Reynolds were really influential in bringing a lot of those students into the University of Montana Western rodeo team because they lived there in Dillon, because they were involved in the rodeo team. They wanted to put on a good rodeo. Rooster put in a lot of time with the college rodeo team, and he was on it. They're part of their legacy, right? So they, as humans, drew in a lot of people, to that because they got to be around world champions, right?
Yeah.
You don't get to be around a world champion every day, right? No. We have the good fortune to work with quite a few of them through our various work, but the average rodeo kid, high school rodeo kid, is not just like neighbors with a world champion,
no,
right?
That's...
So bringing their story to life. Sure, maybe we weren't talking about University of Montana Western very much in the film, right? We had, of course, we had the rodeo coach in it. We had a couple of the, friends and family of Benny and Rooster Reynolds. But the point is that you're bringing a culture to life in those films that you're sort of introducing a person to what it would be like to be part of this brand, right?
Right.
So like, this is like your introduction to like friendship with me, right? Like, this is what it looks like to be part of my club, right?
Yeah.
Those short films are not selling films. If you watch a Yeti version of this, a Resistol version of this, even Red Bull version of this, right? The products are in it, but nobody's like, I love this shirt because it fits really well and breathes in the summer and I can move in it or I can rope in it well, right? Like, that's not what's in these films at all.
No.
It's very much that person's story and very much not specific to the product. Like, really kind of who cares about the product in the goal of this particular kind of film. Anyway, sorry, too much. Your thoughts on that whole thing?
No, well, I totally agree with you. I think, one thing, I want to focus on the idea that it's not necessarily about promoting the product, like you were mentioning there at the end. There are a lot of, we can use like films made for entertainment more so like in Hollywood or something like that. Product placement is real and it is no longer subtle.
Yeah. I like it better when it's subtle. Actually, who, this is kind of a little bit off topic, but actually who does this really well or used to do this really well because she doesn't do it as much anymore is Lady Gaga. She was one of the best at brand placement in her music videos and getting paid to brand place without it feeling like brand placement, right?
Really?
So there was like vodka and fashion related stuff, and I know Dior was in a few, and like there was a bunch, right?
Okay.
And she did this incredibly. So like bringing in brand placement into your own films, even better, right? We get to tell it our cultural version of it, right? So
well, I think that brand play, it's not a bad thing to have a brand like sponsor or be in your video, but there'll be sometimes, I'll be watching, a big budget movie and I'm like, oh, this is just a car commercial. Yeah. Like at this point.
If is it Fast and the Furious, it's really good at that. There's one of them that it's like, do you feel like Nissan sponsored this? Yeah.
And I think you look at a lot of brands that, like the projects you're talking about that focus on stories. And, the brand is involved, the brand may be paid for it or they have representatives there that are working on the film. But what they're more focused on is the story. I think that's when you not only connect with the story, but also the brand in a way that's not like, look how good this shirt is. But, if you say the brand worked on this video, they feel like they connect with it. If I feel like I connect with it, then maybe I connect with what the brand feels as well. And I think that's not, it's not a straight path, but it's a powerful one if you can make that connection.
Yeah, you're really like playing into a person's emotions, right?
Yeah.
Like that's really where you're targeting is like, okay, sure, it's a shirt or it's a vehicle or whatever the thing is, right? But what is it that product is doing or involved in or happens to be there for, right?
Yeah.
That makes it part of a story, right? Chevy did a commercial, it was a Christmas commercial, and it was at least 2 years ago. I don't remember exactly when it was, but the family arrives to Grandma's house for Christmas, right?
Okay.
And Grandma and Grandpa live in this great house, and it's filled with all the noise of family, right? There's people cooking and setting the table and kids running around, and some of the kids go up to Grandma and they're like trying to interact with her, but Grandma's probably having some dementia or something, right? Like she's a little checked out. She doesn't quite recognize people. She's really struggling to remember. And in this, I won't call it a commercial because it's longer than that. It's probably like a 3, maybe 5 minute long piece.
Okay.
But one of the teenagers goes over and maybe she wasn't a teacher, might be an older teenager, right? Talks Grandma into going for a drive, right? So she gets Grandma in the old classic Chevy. I think it was a Chevy pickup, right?
Yeah.
And the teenagers driving grandma around all the spots that grandma used to tell her stories about, right? She drives past her and her grandpa's first house. They go to the drive-in movie theater where they, had their first date or whatever, right? So you see, as you're driving around town with them, you see shots, of course, of the Chevy symbol on the old pickup as they get in there. It's the Chevy pickup that they're getting into. It's pretty clear that it's Chevy that is part of this, right? You drive by, and in the driveway of one of the neighbors' houses is a Chevy vehicle, right? Like, they've done a really good job of placing it. And they get to the movie theater, the drive-in movie theater, and grandma suddenly is kind of back, right? Like, she's kind of got her memories back. She's kind of there with her again, and they drive home, right? And when they get home, grandpa comes out of the house, and she's like kind of with us again, right? Like, we've kind of sparked grandma again. And what they're playing on is this emotional tie between, like, that Chevy pickup having been part of their story, right? And, like, it's a pretty emotional little piece, right? Like, they do a really good job of bringing in that emotion. But I think what people are really playing off of is, like, grandma, like, that is a very real situation for a lot of families, right? You go to grandma's house for Thanksgiving or Christmas, and they don't recognize any of the grandkids anymore, right? So being able to help grandma remember, right? That is a huge moment that anyone who's ever experienced that is going to feel as a win. So anyway, Chevy really knocked it out of the park with that one.
Well, what I like about a project like that is a lot of times I think a consumer or anybody who is, a viewer can maybe feel out of touch with a big brand like Chevy. I feel like
fairly faceless brand, right? Like, I don't know who works there.
I don't know who the executives at Chevy. I don't know anybody at Chevy. Maybe I know the mechanics, but I don't know the people up in charge at Chevy. But then when they release something like that, then you had to, somebody up top had to make the decision that this is something I resonate with. This is something that I think other people will resonate with. And then I think it starts to become a little more human. When you think about big brands like Chevy or in any tech brand, stuff like that, where you maybe struggle to make that personal connection, you're just connecting through products. I think building that personal connection is also how you develop those, like, longer term customers. And being able to do that through a video you produce, I think that's really powerful. And when you look at a thing like cars, people already have a pretty big connection with their cars. Cars are special to people. But then when your car is special, not because it's your car, but because the people that made your car you connect with,
the memories you made in that car with
exactly.
other people.
I think that's really when you start to I think, I don't want to say reap the benefits necessarily, because it's not just for the benefits, but you start to see.
It certainly is, though, right? Like, if you're talking about a company, it's sometimes a little scary to make these kinds of investments for brands. They're worried about ROI, right? Like, okay, well, how am I going to measure the ROI on that, right? Like, I didn't pick a specific product. I won't be able to see, like, a spike in sales on this specific product because like, we're not pushing the product. But the thing to realize is that that's sales, not marketing, that you're talking about. You're talking about selling people something. You're not talking about building a community, which is really the basis of marketing.
Exactly.
I think let's go one step further than that, right? Let's talk about actual films, right? Distributable films, either on Prime or in the movie theater, right? Private brands can be involved in those. That might feel a little unreachable, but how do you see brands having a real play into those sorts of things, and what do you think a brand should do to be involved in something like that?
Okay, well, first off, I think that there, as a viewer perspective, there's just a level of, like, professional respect when you see a brand involved in something like that, especially if it's a brand who maybe has been up and coming the last 10 years or something like that. If I see a huge name brand in a full length film like that, I wouldn't be too surprised. But maybe a brand I haven't, like, something kind of new, I think that it just develops a level of respect. Like, hey, like, that brand has really made it, because when you talk about people in movies on the big screen, like, oh, it's like they made it on the big screen, you know? And I think that when a smaller brand can make their way up there, I think that's really cool. But when you talk about bigger brands that are then in there, I think one of the biggest things that you have to talk about is how that full-length feature film, the movie in the theaters, maybe reflects or represents or has that kind of connection with the brand and why they would choose that. Because, I mean, there are a lot of movies in theaters. Maybe it's declining now because a lot of movies now are on Netflix, but I think that either way, whether it's on Netflix or in the theaters, it's the same thing. How would a brand pick which one they want to partner with? With everything coming out, even like TV shows, for example, on Netflix, if a brand wanted to have that type of partnership, I mean, there are a lot of options, and I think what's important is deciding like which target audience is going to resonate most with your brand, and how that is going to then reach your customers or viewers in a way where they say, oh, I see they're partnered, I'm going to then take the next step. And like, to you, what does that look like? If give me a brand. Which brand should we use?
Let's use Schaefer Outfitter.
Let's use Schaefer Outfitter. So Schaefer Outfitter has a collaboration with some sort of show. It could be any, or TV, movie.
They've
whatever.
been in Yellowstone.
Yeah, okay. What does that look like for them beneficial? And then how does the viewer or consumer take the next step in that partnership?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's in the Western industry, this is kind of a good one, right? Because like people in marketing in the Western industry will call it the Yellowstone effect, right? So like suddenly cowboys are cool again, right? So like I think brands like Schaefer, Kimes was really involved, Montana Silversmiths was really involved, especially because they had a licensed line and everything like that. But what they're really looking for is like, how do I identify with people who are already in my industry, right? Which they may already be doing well, but this would only impact that more. Secondly, how do I impact people who are in love with my industry, but are not necessarily part of it, right? So I think that you get to reach slightly outside the space, right? Like, but like to still fans, right? You still want to reach those fans. From the Yellowstone perspective, that is what kind of they're after. When we're talking about things like, we'll just use Nice Job Cowgirl as the example, right? Montana Silversmith chose to be involved in that not only because they were 26 years long in Judy's story, but also because they really believed in the messaging, right? There was a leadership growth, there was a industry growth, there is a industry impact sort of underlying example in Nice Job Cowgirl. That Montana Silversmiths really supports and resonates and passes it on, like through their Breaking Trail Leadership Awards, which was inspired by the film. So they are now recognizing leaders in the industry, which make, ultimately make an impact on the industry as a whole. So I think brands should consider doing these sorts of films. You could do it from anything from like, the Dude Ranchers Association is turning 100 years old. That's a great history to talk about, right? And I'm not talking about fully documentary style, but like maybe partially, right?
Recognize it.
Yeah, recognize it. I think that there's a lot of really great stories out there that basically you can take those shorter videos and you can turn them into longer films when the story is deeper, right? And brands being involved in them is supporting the community that it represents. It's putting you in front of a larger audience, and it's potentially getting you some really, really, really quality content that you and many people are already talking about. So being involved in those films is huge.
I think that's important. When you say quality content, I think off the bat, when somebody says quality content, I think they might initially think of like the most expensive camera and the most expensive lens and the most expensive lights and stuff like that, because they're thinking, wow, like high quality 8K footage. But to me, and I think a lot of other people that have really committed themselves to making powerful stuff, high quality content, I mean, a nice camera helps, but I think what's most important is what the content is actually about, the story that you're following, who you're actually taking a video or picture of. And I think you're right when you say, that's high quality content. I think some of the most powerful content that I've ever seen or been able to be a part of, it wasn't with perfect lighting, it wasn't with the most expensive camera I've ever used, but it was with a powerful story. It was with real, like, raw emotion that has been reflected and represented through the lens. And I think when you talk about powerful content, that's what's really powerful.
I think one example that like you did in your freelance work as a high schooler, right? Like which really follows with this, like maybe not the fanciest camera, maybe not the best equipment, maybe not the most high-tech editing, right? Is your senior year without a senior year.
Senior class.
Senior class with our senior year.
This was a project. I graduated high school when COVID was kind of at its peak in Oregon, and we weren't able to really go to school. When we did go to school, we were all in masks and sitting. School looked very, very different for me, especially as somebody who was also in athletics. We played a couple games with no fans, which was really weird and hard for my family that wanted to come watch, and it was just a really different experience. And I remember at the end of the year, you get your yearbook, and I think that our yearbook at the time legitimately had screenshots of Zoom classes, and in that,
what a yearbook!
A lot of the students don't have their cameras on for classes, so it was screenshots of just a black screen with their name. And it was really upsetting for me, in all honesty.
You don't really want to be the black card,
No.
in a yearbook.
I think when you watch, all sorts of movies about, the senior year of high school, it's always kind of this like special, heartwarming coming-of-age story. And this is just not really what I wanted it to look like as like my last memory, So I kind of took it upon myself to interview all the students. Well, not all of the students, as many as I could. I think I did anywhere from like 50 to 65.
Probably, 6 feet apart and masks.
Yeah.
And the whole thing, right?
It was really difficult actually to coordinate all these interviews because there weren't very many places that you could go to do interviews, and all of them were most of them were outside. And even outside, you'd go to. It was a hassle. But to get to your point, I didn't know anything about microphones. I didn't know anything about cameras. I really didn't know how to conduct an interview. And still, with all of those factors, I have, to this day, some of the most powerful answers in video that I have ever captured. And I look back and I think, well, if I knew then what I know now, it would be even more powerful. But I think being able to capitalize on what was a raw, powerful story with real people and real emotions, I think that is wholeheartedly what carried that story. And I think that I am lucky and happy that I was able to kind of find that story when I was still so young, starting out. But I am certainly happy that I learned what I learned from that, and I try to invoke emotion like that into everything I make now. So I think that I'm just I'm grateful that was a starting point. But I think you're right. When you look at work like that, I think it's always going to not only be more impactful, but also have a longer lasting effect. I think that people that were in that and watched it still kind of look back on it as kind of like the lasting memory of high school, which was the goal.
Yeah. Let's kind of switch gears. So we've talked about high quality content. We've talked about the types of video. Let's talk about how it's made,
Okay,
right?
Let's talk about it.
So it could be made with a cell phone. It could be made by one guy with a fancy camera, right?
Yeah.
It could be made that way. But what's the better way?
Well, I think when you ask me, the best way to capture content, like when we're saying powerful, high quality content, I think the best way to do that can sometimes depend on what you're making, right? So let's say you're making a brand video, right?
Yeah. Let's say brand videos and above, right?
Yes, because I think if you're making like the 7-second stuff we talked about, that's a handshake.
We can probably pull B-roll or cell phone footage or whatever it is.
And you could have a good handshake, right? But a good handshake will only get you so far, It's what comes after the handshake. And I think that when you look at a brand video and, you can say, oh, this looks like it was shot on a cell phone. That can unfortunately be a reflection of the company or the brand. I think that that's one of the areas where, if you maybe step it up a little bit, it's an option for the brand to be recognized as somebody who steps it up a little bit in general, because I think the video will reflect everything else they do. If they make shirts, for example, if their brand video looks like it was low budget and low quality, I wonder what their shirts might feel like.
Yeah.
Right. So to me, I think a brand video needs to be representative of the brand's quality and the brand's values. So if you make high quality shirts that are maybe hand tailored and hand sewn, then I think that the camera operation and the brand video should be the exact same way. So I think whatever you're capturing needs to be captured the exact same way that the brand operates.
Or like in Schaefer Outfitters' case, right? Like they're really producing gear that can really serve cowboys, right? Like we want it to be lightweight and we want it to, you know, move with you and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it also has to be tough.
Right.
Right? Because you don't want to look at the barbed wire fence and put a hole in it, right? Like, because that can happen with some of the shirts out there. Like you look at it and suddenly you've got a rip in your shirt. But like it's got to be tough, but it's got to be quality, right? Because you want it to be comfortable, you want it to move with you, you want it to be light, but you want it to be tough, right? That's a pretty good test on a piece of clothing, right?
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing on you know, really anything that a lot of our brands are doing, right? Montana Silversmiths, those buckles are celebrating not just the one win that you had, right? But the years that it took you to be able to get to the point to make that one win, right? Or all the hours in the practice pen, or the you know, cowboy's wife back home who you know is having to deal with a pipe breaking or whatever on her own, right? Or the kids or whatever, right? It's a whole lot more that those products represent, and so being able to match quality is huge. I think, you know, you can screw that up in a lot of areas. You know, you have somebody who isn't really paying attention to lighting. Right. Shoot, you know, like you get back and you're like, God, that could have been lit better, and that could have like really evoked a different emotion. Think about like the like kind of Rembrandt lighting look or typical documentary look, right? Where you've got a fairly dark room and you're real focused on the conversation, right? That is a very different feel than us sitting out here in the open air today.
Exactly.
So like this probably to a viewer feels a lot more casual. Should.
Yeah, as it should, because it is.
It is, yeah. But if we're trying to evoke an emotion, try to communicate something that you can identify with, lighting, audio, camera angle, like all the sound design underneath it, the edit, the color grade, all of that stuff goes into what makes that film evoke the emotion and have the impact that you needed it to, right? So that isn't done by one guy. There's no way to do that.
It's not done by one guy. And here's what I think is most important that you've kind of touched on is, I think even if your plan is to have it done by one guy, right? You need not only one guy. You need a team of people that fully understand what your brand means, what it does, and who the people are that you're representing. And I don't mean just reading the mission statement. You know, I mean people that
get you.
They want to get you. They have used your products. They admire your products. They admire the people that do it, and you know, you guys connect on a level that says, I trust you to represent me. You know, I think that when you're making a brand video, when you want something truly powerful, I would maybe even prefer somebody who is, you know, I don't want to say low quality, because I don't want anything to be low quality, but I would prefer somebody who has a firm grasp on who I am as a brand, somebody who has a firm grasp on what we do and how we do it, and I want them to spearhead it rather than getting somebody random and saying, hey, you come in and you make a brand video.
How many times have you seen a TV commercial or music video or even a social post, a magazine ad, anything, right? Where the one that always comes to mind, this one is, it's kind of a funny example, but it always comes to mind, it just drives me nuts, is Victoria's Secret did a cowboy-related themed shoot.
Okay.
The hats were all on backwards.
That's what I'm talking about.
Like that kind of stuff.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
It's fine. Like, number one, don't pretend to be somebody you're not, right? Identify with your own community, understand who you are, and understand who your community thinks you are, right? But number two, if you're going to do something, don't hire somebody that doesn't understand you, right? Like, I could probably make a commercial about a marathon, right? I could probably do that. I am not a marathon runner, right? Like, if I'm going to talk about athletics, like I like to swim, I like to play lacrosse, and I like rodeo, right? So like, put me there.
And those are in your wheelhouse.
Right, put me there. Don't even bring me in when it's something that I don't get, right? Like golf, probably not my strong suit. I think it's cool. I like to whack a ball real hard. I'm pretty good at mini golf, right?
Right, there
Like
you go.
Kevin and I love to stop mini golf anytime we get the chance,
Okay.
but like serious PGA Tour type of golf,
Right.
there's little nuances, right?
Yeah.
Like, when is it okay to clap? When is it not okay to clap?
Yeah.
When is it okay to crack a beer open, right? You know, like the little nuances of the culture
Yeah.
are where you want to play.
Yeah.
So having a person or a group or an agency or a filmmaker who
Yeah.
really understands that, really gets it. I mean, shoot, how many Hollywood movies are there out there that ruined the cowboy culture, or
know.
gosh, any movie
Any
made
culture.
about cops,
Right.
any movie made about the military, like please have a
Yes.
consultant.
Right.
Thank you.
And I think that's when you really hit the jackpot, is when you can find somebody who understands exactly what you need, understands the culture, the community, the people, and then also make really high quality content.
With a team that can
Exactly.
make really high
when you
quality
don't have to
content.
sacrifice one or the other. You know, if you're picking between, well, they do drone footage and, well, these guys know who I am, you know. When you can get somebody who does both, and when you can get somebody who like truly understands, for example, maybe an ex-golfer, like you were talking about, that now makes really high quality video content. I think that's when you've then hit the jackpot. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is special about, you know, being able to work in video production, is because you're not just like, okay, record, you know. And I think that's kind of the mistake I made at the start, was like, oh, I'll make videos about anything, you know, I don't care, I'll just make any videos. But when you find what you resonate with, or what your team or company resonates with, and then all of the people on the team can have a reflection of themselves in the content that's being created, I think that's when it then becomes powerful from both sides. You get the client and the team that made it to feel a connection with it, to maybe they see part of themselves in that video. They were inspired by their real firsthand experiences. And I think that's when you really start to make that powerful stuff. And I don't know. I think you're right when you say, well, like, you probably wouldn't make the most powerful golf video, you know. But I think I don't know. I think that maybe if you learned how to golf, right? Maybe if you got a couple more hours out on the course.
But man, I'd
could
really
start,
like to have someone with me,
yeah,
at least, you know.
You could start, but even then, like, there are things that you have been doing since you were 4 years old that are just ingrained in your nature, and I don't think that's something that can be forged through
Yeah.
video, no matter who you are.
Yeah, I think like just as much as your brand is not for everyone, you're picking an ideal client. You
Yeah.
should really be kind of like applying that same thing to like who it is that's making your video, right? And then also like how quality are they, right? If you've got a few choices, hopefully, right? And then picking a team that really gets it, with a leader who really can direct it, right? And a storyboard and a prep and all the things that go into making a really great campaign, whether that's a film or a 7-second video. I think either one takes some thought. you know.
Well, I think also on that, you know, your viewers, if, you know, people that are really in touch with your brand and their community, they'll see through it.
Oh yeah.
They'll
spot
not
it
only
from
will
a
they see
mile
through
away.
it, they'll call it out too.
Yeah.
Especially on Instagram or TikTok or anything like that. They'll let you know. Mm-hmm. Those cowboy hats are on backwards, guys.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That got really brutal. But
Yeah.
okay, video. Overall statement. What is it about video that makes it such a powerful tool for marketing at any level?
Overall statement. We're talking like a sentence. Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, you gotta let me think. There's no replacement. There's no replacement for a video. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be my statement here, because I think, well, the only thing that could potentially replace a video is being there in person, watching with your own eyes. Mm-hmm. And at that point, that they've made it. You know, mm-hmm. they're no longer considering the purchase. They are there. They're watching with their own eyes. And when you can create something like that, where the only thing that it can be replaced by is a first-hand, like, visual experience, I mean, that's powerful. Mm-hmm. That is connection at its finest. That is, I mean, you talk about, you know, people that are really like in touch, or like, hey, you know, you see somebody, guess what I just saw, like, on Instagram, or guess, you know, I just saw this video. I mean, it's an experience, and I think that I think there's no replacement. And so that's what I'll go for. There's no replacement.
I like it. Okay, we usually only do this with external guests, but I think it'll be fun to do it with you too.
Okay,
so at the end of every podcast episode, we ask a question, and I'll kind of set it up for you, and then I'll let you go for it. But this is released every Sunday as the soft launch to Monday, right?
Yes.
So this is hopefully a podcast that helps you get inspired, be prepared for move forward with your week, right? Scout and I talk about like what is our soft launch to Monday, what does that look like? We've asked many guests. It can be anything from I got to reset my own personal life by washing my hair, or I go to church on Sundays, I spend time with family, I read through my emails, I do a goal setting thing for the week, whatever it is. What is your soft launch to Monday?
Well, I will tell you the most important thing for me to start my soft launch. The most important thing is getting a good night's sleep. But I think that a lot of people get that confused with maybe going to bed early or sleeping in late. And I think getting a good night's sleep for me is getting deep, like heavy REM sleep. And that starts in the morning, because to get a good night's sleep, I have to make sure that I'm feeling stress-free. I have to be worn out from the day. I have to be busy. And I can't have anything on my mind keeping me up. So in the morning on Sunday, immediately we go into housework. Yard work, anything like that just needs to be taken care of. Stress off my mind. Mow the lawn, pick the weeds, get all of the, we have tomatoes and cucumbers and zucchinis and all sorts of stuff. Pick everything that we need to pick, just make sure the area that I live, the area that I sleep and work and exist is taken care of. Family is obviously really important to me, especially after I've been gone in Tennessee and then going to Connecticut. So usually I go over to my grandparents' house for either lunch or dinner. Luckily, they have a pickleball court. So there I kind of get a little bit of exercise in, and I also see the family, eat food. Food is something that's important to me, and I think that there's no way to get a good night's sleep without a good meal throughout the day. So whether that's eating with family or eating good food with a smaller group of people, I think that's important. Lily, for example, her and I will make dinner if we don't go out like with my family somewhere. We'll like really work hard to make a good dinner. You don't want to work 3 hours for a dish, but like really commit ourselves, find a recipe we like, and then go make dinner. Because making dinner can wear you out too, but then it's also rewarding at the
doing the dishes.
It can be rewarding. To have a good dinner. And then I like to unwind kind of at the end of my night before I go to bed, whether we're watching a movie or reading a book or just like hanging out talking on the back patio, just kind of a segue into the evening and really relaxing before the week starts. And then I think when all of those things are taken care of, when I have taken care of the things that stress me out, I have taken care of the things that are on my mind, and physically I have like exerted myself in one way or another, then I think I've set myself up for a good night's sleep. And I'm serious. If you get it that good of a good night's sleep, it's going to carry you through the whole week. It is going to be good enough the entire week. Even on Wednesday, like, wow, I slept good on Sunday, though. Like, it's okay, And then you just get it back next Sunday. And
especially if we're shooting somewhere in the field when you're not going to sleep. But
it'll carry you through the whole week, and then you just get it back next Sunday.
Yeah.
So that's my soft launch.
Well, thanks, Ryan. I appreciate you. We're stoked to have you back on the team.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, doing more video stuff. So appreciate you.
Yeah.